The Night Stalker won't be seen tonight, so we can bring you a very special episode of The Gen X Files. Welcome to The Gen X Files. I'm Jim.
I'm Adam.
And today's show is all about
Over the Edge.
Mommy's alright, Daddy's alright.
They just seem a little weird.
Surrender.
You know, Cheap Trick is from Rockford, where my brother lives.
Oh man, it was what a soundtrack to this
Oh my
movie.
god, the soundtrack was amazing.
Cheap Trick, the Cars, Hendrix.
Yeah, so much.
I love it's like 1978, and they're in the car, and he's like, let's put something in. It's all this old crap. And then he puts in Jimi Hendrix.
I was like, that's from less than 10 years ago.
I know. But
And
kids.
it's Jimi Hendrix.
Oh my God, man. It has been a while since I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
And it is such a good goddamn movie.
I have never seen this movie, and I was so surprised by how much I love this movie.
This is what the 70s was known for, baby.
Yeah.
These cinema verite, slice of life, they really, I don't think any other decade got kids better than the 70s.
Yeah.
Whether it was like Bad News Bears or this, they really portrayed kids. It wasn't cloying. They weren't cute. None of these kids are really cute.
No, none of them are cute.
They're all normal children.
They're all kind of androgynous.
Well, that's what it was in the 70s. We were all androgynous. We all had these weird kind of page boy haircuts.
Going to wear longish hair and have mannish faces.
Oh, my God. And they couldn't afford,
that made it real.
Oh, my.
So real.
They couldn't afford a full wardrobe for Matt Dillon's Richie. They could only, either a half shirt, no sleeves.
I'm pretty sure the town of Granada had to take tax. It was a fabric tax.
It's so weird, the crap that we wore
back
back then. Half shirts and tiny little dolphin shorts and gym socks pulled up to our thighs.
And the drug kid with the weird sweater and the overalls. It was
yeah.
who are you, man?
Yeah, that's what I love. Kids didn't give a crap about fashion or anything back
they didn't
then.
care.
They just wanted to smoke weed,
They
baby.
didn't care. I know. It's so funny. I just watched a meme this morning, and I'm pretty sure it was a British guy with his kid, and he talked about how, when I was young, my parents, as punishment, would make me stay inside.
Yeah.
And his kid was like, how is that punishment?
Yeah.
And he's like, we're so different, Kevin.
Well, Kevin, we didn't have video games and all that crap.
No, it was not. I mean, because be inside was awful because you wanted to be out, you wanted to be running around, hanging out with your friends.
Well, we were free-range children back then. We were the first generation that dealt with widespread divorce.
Yeah.
2 working parents. We were latchkey kids. We all had a string with a key around our neck.
Yeah.
And then when we got home, we made our own snacks and watched our own TV, and we're left to our own devices. And the thing that's so brilliant about this movie, and is so spot on about this movie, and makes it one of the greatest movies about kids that I can remember, most realistic, is that the problem with these subdivisions that were growing rapidly at that time.
Yes, huge, springing up everywhere.
There were these carbon cutout homes that were all the same.
Yeah.
And just acres and acres and acres of these homes. But there was nothing to do.
No, they didn't ever. I mean, the opening of the movie was perfect.
Yeah.
It was like 25% of the population was under 15 in the city, and none of the adults seemed to understand that.
No. And the fact that they were going to put up a bowling... It's funny because the sign actually said a movieplex and a mini golf course.
Oh, really?
But then he was like, what happened to the bowling alley and the something? But that's why this movie's horrible. I grew up in... It wasn't a subdivision. My stepdad... It was a subdivision, but it wasn't... homes on top of each other. They were 1.5 acre, 2 acre properties, custom homes.
You had some yards and some.
And we
stuff,
had a ton of just space to build
right.
forts and dig holes.
Go outside and mess around. Yeah.
Search for Bigfoot and catch snakes and
make
lizards.
dirt tracks and ride your bikes.
Yeah, and when you're between 6 and 11, that's great, building forts and stuff. But once you hit 12, 13, 14, like these kids.
Yeah, where puberty starts coming in and
not just puberty, but also just the rage feelings about your parents.
So many strong emotions.
I am not proud of it, but I participated in quite a bit of vandalism.
Oh yeah,
as a youth.
Yeah,
and because that's what we did. We
Yeah, I
knocked
mean,
down
you were
mailbox.
bored.
Yeah, we were bored
You'd
as shit.
Go to the house that wasn't done yet,
Yeah.
and you tear it apart because, nobody's moving in here.
The funny thing is, the kids have their clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically the unfinished thing. I had lock picking tools
Oh,
that I
nice,
got at a gun
nice.
show, and the old man had houses, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I would pick the locks in the
Nice.
houses that weren't sold, and we'd go party in
Oh,
those.
nice.
Same kind of crap, because you want to show your independence,
Right,
You want to
right.
be an adult, but you
Yeah.
just don't have the decision-making power.
The capacity to actually
do
be
it.
an adult. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And this is such a perfect example of these kids that are desperate for some. Kids are desperate not for discipline. I hate that word, but kids are desperate for some sort of routine.
Guidance.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they want to have a little bit of walls.
Sure.
They want to push the boundaries to see what is acceptable.
But you have to have boundaries to push.
Yes, and you
And-
have to have adults that actually care.
And the fact that the only thing that these kids had was this rinky-dink, looked like some Fallujah erected.
Oh my god, it was awful. I mean, it was weak
Quonset
enough,
hut, yeah.
weak enough that a cop car just runs right through, and destroys the entire thing.
Well, he did hit the gas, the giant gas container that was right in front of the
yeah.
very well put together whomever.
I was,
created that. Death Trap.
Very surprised by the amount of people in New Granada City who kept a lot of gasoline in their trunks.
Hey man, the '70s gas finally went up past
that
$1.
is true. That's true.
It
Yeah.
was.
And there was a lot of shortening and then a lot of rationing and stuff going on.
Yes.
And yeah,
People don't remember that you had to look at your license plate. Odd numbers at certain days
the
you could
odd
go.
and even days. Yeah,
Even days certain you could
California was the first place to do that.
go. Yep.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
had to. They had to because there just wasn't gas.
No. But this movie, it not only treats kids with dignity and realism,
Yeah,
but also drugs. Also, it's like the kids are doing drugs. It's not ruining their lives. They're just
No,
kids
no.
smoking pot. One of my favorite scenes in that movie is
Claude.
it's Claude. He goes into school and he's like, "Oh man, oh no!" And his buddy's like, "What's going on?" He's like, I thought it was speed. I think I just took LSD." And then his reaction of seeing those Francis Bacon paintings.
No,
or something?
Hieronymus Bosch.
Hieronymus Bosch, yeah.
Yeah.
The Bosch paintings. It was just so
It was
realistic.
so great. The look on his face was so perfect.
And then he goes later to the drug dealer and he's like, "Hey, you got any hash?" He's like, "I got a lot of acid." He's like, "Oh, no, I'm done with acid for a while."
14 and already
14.
over my acid habit.
At 14. But this is the thing, man. I mean, the 70s was different because we had... The 60s was kind of the first real kind of open rebellion by kids. The Summer of Love and protesting the war and disobeying their parents and distrusting government. All of this stuff was happening that made the 70s such an interesting time to be a kid because you not only had the backlash from all of that,
Right.
you also had what I said before, which is divorced parents and two working
Yeah,
parents. And you're living in these, subdivisions with a bunch of other kids that are bored. And and it's just, it really fostered a false sense of independence for kids.
Right.
But also a true sense of independence for kids. And I think a lot of the reason why Gen X is the way that it is because of the way we grew up.
Yeah.
We were kind of the lost generation. We get lost in the middle of, the millennials and the boomers fighting.
Right,
It's because we got lost in the middle of our parents fighting.
Yeah,
Yeah. We're used to just being, disappearing into the corner with Lord of the Rings. It's just, and our weed.
Yeah,
And,
there was so little supervision for kids in the 70s growing up that they literally had to run ads at the end of the evening saying it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kid is?
Do you know where your children are?
It's like, what? Oh, that's right. I had kids. They should go yell at them to come inside.
But there was also this kind of implicit trust from parents. Like, when I was a little kid, you just leave the house.
Yeah.
And then you'd hear like 5 o'clock. This was getting dark.
Yeah.
Oh, my mom's calling me. I gotta
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
You know, and then you'd hear Robert.
Oh, yeah. We had dinner at 5 o'clock every night. Unless my dad was in construction and worked super early, so we ate dinner at 5 o'clock. And it didn't matter what I did between the end of school and 5 o'clock, as long as I was there at 5 o'clock. And I remember one time got into a fight with a kid. We got into a huge fight, and I still made it back home. I was like all like the kid in the movie, all bruised up, and he was like, "What happened?" I was like, "Got into a fight," and he's like, "All right, let's eat dinner."
Yeah, you're like Carl.
Yeah, it was just funny. My dad he seemed like he was so impressed and just so was like, okay.
Well, there wasn't this helicopter parenting. There wasn't this micromanaging of children that they have today, which I don't know. Look, I'm not a parent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell people how to parent. I know how I was parented.
Right.
You know, it was a mix of extreme discipline and extreme freedom, which I think a lot of us had. It's like you could do what you want until you effed up.
Right.
And if you effed up, baby, there were consequences.
Yeah. That was my curfew was to be home before my parents woke up in the morning.
Oh.
And I didn't, because they allowed to trust me that I wouldn't, and I never did. I was always home before midnight. But like, and if I was going to be out late, they would just call. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of trouble you're in, just call, because we'll help. And they were good about that. But then once you messed up, it was like, all right, well, we got to reel it back in a bit because you're taking advantage, you know. And it never happened for me. Never happened that often. My brother was much worse about that stuff. But like,
you're on restriction.
But yeah. I mean, he was always getting in trouble, and I was able to observe and just kind of be like not making his mistakes.
Oh yeah, same. But my sister was older,
Yeah.
and I learned from her mistakes, and I was really good at not getting caught.
Yeah.
That was really
same,
good.
Same.
At being bad, but seeming good.
Yeah.
I think I got the only time I got caught, because I used to sneak. I had this this girl. We were friends, but we would hook up.
Yeah.
And I would sneak out of the house. It was second floor.
Yeah.
So I'd have to like go out my window, slide off the roof, drop down onto the floor, which was close to my parents' window, so I had to be super quiet. And I'd get into my Fiero, and I would push it so it would go. We had a little dip in the driveway. It would go.
Right.
And I could coast it all the way, like half a mile away before I had to turn on the engine.
Right.
I get there, go, sneak in this girl's window, fool around, you know, and I would, you know, usually get out of there, you know, like 3, 4 in the morning, go back, climb. I'd have to climb on like the apex of the roof. It was very Mission Impossible. And then, you know, and I was fine. But there was one time when my mom woke up and she went out and she saw the car was gone and she ran up to tell me the car was stolen. And then saw my really badly put together fake Jimbo in the bed. And then I came home and, I knew I was in trouble. 'Cause anytime my mom had her sunglasses on at night, you knew she was pissed. So, but luckily, this was only a couple of weeks before I was going to college. So she didn't tell the old man. And I was like, it was just a goodbye party. I wasn't going to see any of these people for a while. I didn't want to bother you. But, but yeah, I mean, there was this kind of like, your kids have enough sense not to die, basically.
Most of them, yes.
But that was the thing. I mean, until you proved that you were incompetent,
right,
then you pretty much got their freedom. Of course, there were still like very strict parents.
Sure.
But, you know, most of us were just free-range kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, as I got older, luckily there was like a movie theater close enough by. Like, you know, there were things to do in our town.
There were things to do, yeah.
It wasn't like this, you know,
which was the huge problem. I mean, there was just nothing for the kids to do.
Yeah,
so of course they're going to turn to drugs and.
Well, we're always going to find a way to entertain ourselves, and it's usually like something destructive.
Yes,
like throwing bottles, or like the kid shooting BBs at the cop car. I mean, my God. You know?
So that kid, I just want to slap him. It's like, that's so. I would be so pissed. I was driving and someone shot my car window.
That's the thing, too, is watching this movie as a kid, I was like, F yeah, man.
Yeah.
F the parents and authority.
F the man.
And actually, even watching this, I was kind of like that.
Well, I mean, the cops in this were dicks.
Sergeant Doberman.
Dicks.
But, yeah, it's just this, there's not. We were talking about this yesterday. There's been a few movies that kind of define the generation or get the kids. Like this, Harmony Korine's Kids.
Yeah.
Which was so scary.
Yeah.
It really cemented me never wanting kids watching that movie.
I mean, I think I was like 16 when that came out, and I literally was like, kids do this?
Yeah.
Like, that freaks me. I was like, and it was true.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a lot of friends that I had no idea they were so heavily into drugs.
Well, it wasn't just drugs; it was the sex,
Yeah.
and the unprotected sex, and the AIDS, and the disease. You know, it was like back in the 70s, you might get crabs.
Yeah.
You know, maybe the herpes if you're, you know,
probably herpes. Yeah.
but mostly just the crabs or the drip stuff
Yeah,
that you just
yeah.
take some penicillin and you're fine.
Right,
You know,
right.
but
Yeah,
we got saddled with AIDS and all sorts.
It got more scary as we got older.
Hepatitis and stuff. It was just crazy, but this movie captured children in such a realistic manner. It's very cinema verite. It seemed very European.
Yes, very European.
I think this would be a perfect and frightening double feature with kids.
Yeah. I haven't seen kids in a long, long time.
Neither. That was one I could watch once.
Yeah.
It's not something that you're going to put in your collection.
No,
It's just like, unless you're
it's so good.
so
I watch it twice a day. Yeah.
But that launched a lot of great careers too. Just
Oh,
like
it
this
did.
launched Matt Dillon. You know, that launched what's her name? Every nerd's fantasy, Rosario Dawson. And Chloe Savini.
Savini. Yeah, Chloe Savini. Yeah.
You know, some really great actors. And same with this. You know, it was. I love movies that don't treat kids like A, idiots,
Yeah.
or B, 30-year-olds,
Yeah.
you know, or C, something in between,
Yeah.
you know, or just like these super funny blabbity bloops.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I love these movies that are slice of life that really show you what it was like to be a kid during this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think-
Yeah. I think that the director did a really good job of capturing what the kids were like by not dumbing them down, but then also that's the same way he treated the audience.
Yeah.
It was like he didn't dumb it down for the audience. It was like, this is how the kids are.
Yeah.
And you're gonna watch and learn something and root for whoever.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, and it was a very gray, you know,
Yeah,
like
there's no real bad guys.
no,
in this.
I mean, you know, Doberman was kind of a dick, but like I totally understand.
Of course. I mean, look, you're a cop whose basic job is to police children.
Yeah.
Who are calling you the F word.
Yeah,
You know, the
constantly.
Geisler F
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
You know, and it's showing you no respect.
Openly defying you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And mouthing off at you all the time and causing all this trouble. You know, but
And
also he brings it upon himself with the way he treats them.
he totally did because
you know?
he treated them like kids.
Yeah.
The one adult that they respected was the rec center lady,
Julia.
and it showed at the end because like they, you know, she just asked and little Johnny went and got her the phone,
Yeah.
and then she ended up ending the whole thing.
Yeah,
and it's like
the enemy, quotey quotes, of the parents, you know, the one that, this is your fault because
Yeah.
you're so permissive at the rec center. You're just letting them smoke dope and do whatever.
yeah, it's like I treated them like adults.
Yeah.
I treat them like human beings.
Human beings.
Yes, not adults, but treating them like human beings.
Yes.
You know,
With respect.
They're formative. They're still formative.
Yeah.
Like they're still forming, and like she understood that.
You can't get pissed at kids for being kids.
No.
Kids are going to posture. They're going to peacock. They're going to push boundaries. They're going to mouth off.
Yeah.
Especially the worst kids are like between the age, and this is me
Yeah,
when I was.
yeah.
Like between the ages of 11 and 15.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that seems to be like the prime dick age.
Yeah. Well, it's because you feel like you're becoming an adult, and so you push it. You push it so hard.
And you have all these crazy emotions and
Hormones and things.
just bubbling up, and you're
Yeah.
changing in your body, and it's embarrassing and it's weird.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just the worst time.
It is. It really is.
But this movie really captures that in such an amazing way. And even though the climax is a little over the top, a little over the
Yeah.
edge.
It's still a
doesn't-
movie.
It doesn't seem unrealistic or unbelievable.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
seemed like that kind of was where this was going.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, it was bubbling up to a head. It was
Right.
boiling up to a head. You know, like it was gonna happen. Where it's like they got so tired of being treated like babies
Yeah.
that it's like, okay, we have to make a statement.
Yeah, and the cop killed one of their friends, and it's
Yeah.
it's boiled over. You're not dealing when you're not explaining stuff to kids, or you're not treating them with enough respect to be honest with them about what's going on, then yeah, the kids see through bullshit.
Yeah.
Kids are bullshit detectors, man. And, they see through the bullshit of the parents and the cops. Yeah, and like you said, the only ally they had was the rec center lady.
Yeah. Who just it's like when she sat down smoking that joint at the gate.
I think it was just a cigarette.
It was whatever. I wouldn't believe it's a joint. Okay. But like she's sitting there like whatever, this is happening. Like it's like you on her face you saw that she knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like you only can push them so far. Yeah. And it's another brilliant thing about this movie and the direction is how Doberman, the second he was in that meeting and the second someone questioned him shooting that kid, he freaked out and turned into a 13-year-old.
Yes.
Just freaking out of like, how dare you? How dare you?
Well, also what was so interesting about that scene was Andy Romano as Fred Willett, as Carl's dad.
He was so good.
He understood, like, he's such a typical 70s dad. He's just, he drinks his J&B when he gets home from his hard day at work. Just wants. The thing that's so crazy is like, also the parents are sold a bill of goods, by their parents.
Right.
They were like, we'll have these families, and it'll be a perfect little family, and I'll work.
Oh yeah.
And,
the late 50s, early 60s American sitcom ruined so much, so many lives.
The myth of the nuclear family.
Yeah.
But he stood up and was like, look, what are we doing? We're not listening to the kids. We're not helping these kids.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything. We're just accusing it. I love the fact that there's rationale in this.
Yeah.
I love the fact that there was no real bad guy, that there was no, the conflict was just organic. The conflict was just, it is an untenable situation to have a gaggle of kids with nothing to do. There's always going to be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's and really, and also to really get deep into this, like these planned communities, they were just trying to make money. And it's like, this is why it's like, oh, well, we need more people to move in. We need to build more houses. We don't need to worry about businesses because it'll happen. But right now, all these kids are going to be up in arms because they have nothing to do.
Yeah, well, they don't. They start to build these planned communities, but they end up just being subdivisions.
Yeah.
And they said, it's like, look, to get more people here, we need a factory for them to work at.
Yeah,
we need and that all makes sense, sure. But it's like,
yeah, but you have to have stuff to do. You have to have entertainment.
Yes.
Otherwise, even adults will start to go crazy.
What's so nuts is if they did put as they said, drive-in, but it was a duplex.
Yeah.
But if they did put in the drive-in to the bowling alley or the duplex in the mini golf course.
Yeah.
That would, whoever owned that would be a millionaire because it's going to make a ton of money.
So much money. So much money.
Look, when we went to drive-ins and we went to stuff as kids, we were better behaved. I mean, look.
Yeah.
We got nuts in movie theaters and threw popcorn and stuff. But
it's contained and you're getting that energy out.
Yeah. Without
going and doing acid and drinking and doing it there.
Yeah.
But you're not out destroying things.
Yeah. I mean, I started drinking really young out of boredom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then, I didn't start really doing drugs until I was in college, but I drank quite a bit.
Yeah.
A very unhealthy amount because it was just what you did.
It was around, yeah.
You'd go and you'd find some empty house or a golf course or a cemetery, and you would go with your friends and you'd all nick some liquor from your folks, or we'd go fishing. Sit in the parking lot and wait for some scumbag to buy us beer. Hopefully he wouldn't run away with the money. That always went in 5 times.
Right.
But, we weren't trying to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
We were just trying to be grown-ups.
Yeah.
When we weren't ready to be grown-ups, I think.
Yeah, it's very true.
Anyway, let's get into it. This is such a fascinating movie.
All right, here we go. Take yourself back to 1979.
Oh, yeah, groovy.
May 5th, this is something I did not know, the U.S. Secret Service arrests a man at the Civic Center Mall in Los Angeles 10 minutes before U.S. President Jimmy Carter is scheduled to address a crowd, finding him carrying what appears to be a pistol. Raymond Lee Harvey was carrying a starter pistol loaded with blank rounds and told police that he had been hired to fire the blanks into the ground as a distraction in order for Carter to be assassinated by a sniper team that was stationed in the Allen Hotel overlooking the plaza. LA police found a shotgun case, but not a weapon, and 3 unspent bullets in the hotel room identified by Harvey.
Interesting.
Had no idea that someone was trying to assassinate Carter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody.
It makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but, you know.
It makes sense.
Makes sense from the awful side. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, Ford, didn't Squeaky Fromme or one of the Manson women try to, quoties, assassinate Gerald Ford?
I think so, yeah.
You know, there's always something going on. That one's a really interesting one. That would make kind of a cool short movie or short film or something.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what
was it happening? Did it happen?
It seems weird. It was you can't snipe somebody with a shotgun, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But if they were bullets, you know, and not shotgun shells, maybe there's a sniper rifle in the shotgun case. Who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway, well, that's good. And
I'm glad that Jimmy Carter was not assassinated because he lived for another 55 years.
Lived to be 100.
Yeah. May 10th, for the first time in American history, the price of a gallon of gasoline cost more than $1, with a Gulf station in the Beacon Hill section of Boston raising its price for premium unleaded gas from 98.9 cents to $1.09 of a cent.
Yeah, people lost their effing minds.
I can't even imagine.
Effing mind. You know what else is weird about that assassination thing? Raymond Lee Harvey Oswald.
I know. Raymond Lee Harvey. It's very odd. It's always the 3-name thing, and I don't understand.
Well,
and he was just a patsy.
Yeah, which one? Him? Oh, yeah. This one was a patsy.
He was a patsy, because he was like, just fire at the ground, or whatever. Get people freaked out. Which doesn't make any sense, because then immediately the Secret Service is going to cover him, and
How much? Here's $20.
Yeah.
Okay.
I somehow think that Raymond Lee Harvey just went and put 3 unspent bullets in a shotgun case in a room and then went down and got caught and was like, meh.
Yeah, it seems a little suspect.
Yeah. It's funny, though, with the gas. I only remember one time in my memory that gas was under $1. It was over $1 in my, memory. Yeah. I know that at some point it probably, because obviously I was alive in 79, but only one time I remember one gas station being lower than $1.
It was a mistake.
No, I mean, they did it. It was gas stations across the street from each other, and they were fighting.
Right.
And then eventually it got down to 89 cents a gallon, and oh my God, the guy across the street was like, no, I'm not doing that. And so everybody got gas from this one gas station, and it lasted for a day. But I mean, it was 89 cents a gallon. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, at one point in the 90s, some station, as some weird promotional thing, was like, when the gas price was really going up, it was 89 cents for the first whatever, and there was a line for miles. And, it was just crazy. I mean, I don't remember. I didn't pay a lot of attention to gas prices or OPEC when I was a child.
I mean, same.
I had too many Legos to be concerned with.
May 11th, 8 children ranging in age from 8 to 13 years old were killed in Lebanon after they had become curious about a live artillery shell that had landed in their neighborhood during a clash between Christian militiamen and Palestinian guerrillas.
Ugh, good Lord.
Yeah, so hey, it could be worse. There could be live artillery shells in your subdivision.
Yeah, that's coming.
May 18th, Over the Edge is released in theaters.
Mama's all right, Daddy's all right.
So good. Over the Edge starts with events described in a 1973 San Francisco Examiner article entitled Mouse Packs Kids on a Crime Spree by Bruce Kuhn and James A. Feinfrock, which reported on young kids vandalizing property in Foster City, California.
Mouse Packs is so cute.
What is the Mouse Packs? It sounds so... It's like, take it seriously. They're on a crime spree.
And also, it's like, kids are going to be more dicks now that you call them Mouse Packs.
Yeah,
exactly. What do you call me?
The middle-class planned community had an unusually high level of juvenile crime. Foster City was outside of San Francisco, and I will say, having just been up in that area, there are so many subdivisions that are the same over and over. Cookie cutter. God, it was awful.
Yeah, it was an eyesore, man. I mean, I remember them going up. When we moved to Escondido, California, there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And by the time I left, it was booming. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy what 20 years did to that town, and it's still growing. But
yeah.
But it was that weird subdivision mentality where it's like, live here, work here. You know, it's close to where you work. It's close to all these things. It was
it's just far enough away that you don't have to deal with the hubbub of the city, but it's almost too far away because then you get bored.
It was also a way for people to afford houses.
Yeah.
Because they were cheaper, because they were cheaply built.
Yes.
They weren't A lot of those subdivisions from the 70s still aren't standing today, and if they are, they're not in very good shape.
No, but that's still happening. I mean, I have friends that moved up to Santa Clarita because the houses were cheaper up there. You know, it's 20 miles outside of the city, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, no, I know a lot of people they'll commute for like 2 hours a day.
It's crazy.
3 hours a day just to have a home, and I get it, but it's it's just sad.
Screenwriters Charles S. Haas and Tim Hunter began work shortly after the article's publication, including field research in the town itself, where they interviewed some of the kids. Hunter said that the script accurately reflected the article, with the exception of a more violent ending. I do. From what I recall, I do believe that there was like one night where kids went crazy.
Yeah,
but nobody died.
Well, they also didn't lock all the parents into the.
No. It was just one night of really crazy vandalism.
Well, we would do that, like Halloween, man.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, it was once you got to the age where you weren't trick or treating.
Yeah, what do? You
either stole kids' candy, which I wasn't down for because I was targeted as a child.
Right.
Saved my candy, but I wouldn't do that. But I would go out and TP and egg, and knock down mailboxes and tip over porta potties and just do useless bullshit because you're not having sex, basically.
What else?
Your hormones are like either, it's F or fight.
Right. Yeah.
None of us were effing, but a lot of us were fighting.
Over the Edge was Haas and Hunter's first film. They would write their next film, Tex, also starring Matt Dillon, released in 1982. Hunter would make his directing debut with Tex and would focus on directing for the rest of his career, including Sylvester in 1985, starring Richard Farnsworth and Melissa Gilbert.
It's so funny. Every time I hear that, I just think of Sylvester Stallone.
I know. I think Farnsworth plays, I think he's an angel or something. I don't remember.
Richard Farnsworth was such a great actor.
Oh, yeah.
What was that movie where he rode the
tractor one? Yeah, that was a David Lynch movie.
Yeah. He just drove the
that was based on a true story. That took place in Iowa. Yeah. The guy, he had to go visit his brother who was dying, and he couldn't drive, so he got on his tractor and rode it like 400 miles to go to Minnesota and see his... I don't remember what it was called, but yes, that was Richard Farnsworth. That was one of his last movies.
He was a delight.
He was awesome. Tim Hunter also directed River's Edge in 1986, which we'll be covering later this month, so we'll do more on Tim Hunter then.
Yeah, baby.
I'm so excited to see River's Edge. Haas would write a few more movies before turning to writing novels. He wrote Martians Go Home in 1990, starring Randy Quaid.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. It's not being that bad.
I need to see it again. It's Randy Quaid, so I question everything.
But there was a couple of Martian movies. I get them mixed up. There was
My Stepmother's an Alien?
No, there was one with Karen Black that was really good about like aliens coming in and took over this kid's mom, and it was just really good. It was like it might have been Martians Go Home. It was some sort of Martian movie.
Again, I don't know. He also wrote Gremlins 2, The New Batch, directed by Joe Dante.
Listen to our Gremlins 2 show. I love that movie.
It's so good. Apparently, he suggested that they set it in New York. It was going to be set somewhere else.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, him and Joe Dante got along fabulously. They worked together quite a bit. He also wrote Matinee, which Joe Dante directed in 1993.
Very underrated film with John Goodman, if I believe.
Yeah.
About... just the gimmicks that people would go through.
There was a guy, and I don't remember his name, but he would do
something
like
whale or
the
maybe
shocking. Yeah,
I'm not going to say because I don't remember.
He did like the shocking seats, like it was just to take like the cinema experience to a new level.
Exactly.
Yeah. Haas would also work with Dante again on developing a script titled Termite Terrace, based on Chuck Jones' start at Warner Brothers in the 1930s. The project ultimately never made it to the pre-production stages, as Warner Brothers chose to make Space Jam instead.
Idiots! Termite Terrace, there's a great documentary about it. Termite Terrace is the name of the building where the crazy Chuck Jones and Tex Avery and all the crazy Looney Tunes guys would do the animation. I think I don't know if they did the recording there. They might have had the recording booth there.
Nah, maybe. I don't know.
But that was where they did the work. And I would have much rather seen a movie about that than Space Jam.
Something about Chuck Jones, Space Jam was easier to sell, unfortunately.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Producers hired Jonathan Kaplan to direct the film, just a tender 30 years old at the time of filming.
He's a baby.
Which is funny because it was like his 6th movie.
I know.
It's crazy. Jonathan Kaplan fascinates me.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinates me. Kaplan is the son of Sol Kaplan, film composer and composer for Over the Edge, who was blacklisted for uncooperative testimony in 1954 during the McCarthy hearings when Jonathan was just 7 years old.
Yes, all wouldn't name names.
Yeah, they had him and his wife, who was also a actor, but she didn't actually get into feature films. She was a Broadway or like a stage actor, but she got into feature films not until 1980, I believe. Like, it was much later.
Well, because she was blacklisted.
Yeah, but they had to move to New York, and like they were in LA, they'd move to New York, and it definitely informed a lot of Jonathan Kaplan's upbringing.
What's crazy? Look, if you are feeling the rage of today's politics and climate and atmosphere, do yourself a favor and go back and do some research into the McCarthy era.
So stupid.
It was the Red Scare, the absolute hysterics over communism, almost destroyed this country.
Oh, yeah.
Several times.
Yeah. Kaplan started his career as a child actor in the Broadway production of The Dark at the Top of the Stairs. I'm going to do that again. Kaplan started his career as a child actor in the Broadway production of The Dark at the Top of the Stairs, directed by Elia Kazan.
Ooh.
He was in a 1964 off-Broadway production of Rumpelstiltskin, written by Elaine May.
Elaine May.
Genius.
Absolute genius. Her and her husband, Mike Nichols.
Yes.
They were a comedy team. And
They were brilliant.
But each individually, too, as writers and directors, and just...
She was so underrated. Like, she
Oh,
was
my God.
so brilliant and so funny.
Oh, really?
A woman very, very ahead of her time.
It was very difficult for women to break out in terms of like writing or directing.
Yeah.
And it's just a bummer. It bums me out sometimes where these super talented women were just not given their due.
Yeah.
Because they were women.
Yeah. It sucks.
But she rose above that.
But she had an amazing career regardless.
Oh, yeah.
But like,
Because talent overcomes prejudice
She
sometimes.
was so funny. So funny.
Both of them together. I mean, I have their albums. It's insane. They were so good together. And they were this like couple that people wanted to hang out with.
Oh, yeah.
you know?
They seemed so much fun. So while Kaplan attended film school in New York University in the mid-'60s, Martin Scorsese was one of Kaplan's tutors.
Ooh, tutors.
Yeah.
Here's what you got to do.
Well, he wasn't...
64 is 8.
He wasn't a teacher, but I mean, like, I think at that time Scorsese had only directed a few features for Corman.
Yeah.
And so he was like, it's like, you have experience. So, he kind of took him under his wing. Scorsese actually recommended Kaplan to Roger Corman to direct Night Call Nurses in 1972 at the age of 21.
Nice.
That Night Call Nurses.
I've
It's
seen
like,
it.
You're young and you understand.
Yeah, well, there was a formula.
Yeah.
But Corman was an absolute genius when it came to recognizing talent.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of your favorite actors and directors from the 70s and 80s were pretty much discovered.
It was a brilliant way to hone your craft because he's like, I'm going to have you direct this movie. I need it done in 2 months.
Yeah.
Go.
Scorsese, Coppola, Jack Nicholson, James Cameron,
Not Demi.
Jonathan Demme. Yeah.
Jonathan Demme, and then somebody else.
Everybody.
Yeah. Huge amount of people.
Everybody
worked for Corman.
I worked for Corman.
You did.
I didn't get to direct though.
Yeah.
I almost got beaten to death by an actor. Listen to our Loverboy show to hear that story.
So Night Call Nurses did very well, and Corman gave him The Student Teachers, which was released in 1973, which Kaplan also co-wrote and co-edited.
Nice.
Getting more experience.
Hey, baby.
Brilliant.
Hey, look, I believe that as a director, you need to know how to edit. Because if you know how to edit, you will know how to shoot.
Yeah. After having a successful run of 2 blaxploitation films in the mid-'70s, The Slams in 1973 starring Jim Brown, and Truck Turner in 1974 starring Isaac Hayes and Yaphet Kotto.
Yaphet Kotto, baby!
I mean, that movie looks so great. The cover is so great because Isaac Hayes never actually bulked up. He was just kind of chunky.
Yeah.
But it was like him shirtless, standing there being all tough, and it's like, oh, Isaac Hayes.
That's why I love the 70s.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of flabby
It was
dudes.
so great.
Nobody had muscles. There were no six-packs in the 70s, except the ones that people were drinking while they were driving.
So both of those movies did really well, made a lot of money. Kaplan was offered to direct White Line Fever for Columbia, a major studio starring Michael Vincent.
Michael Vincent. Oh,
It was an action movie.
Yeah.
About the subway, I think, or a train line or something.
Maybe.
It was definitely
about
something.
cocaine.
No, it was definitely
just
about
kidding.
trains. But it was a huge hit. It made a ton of money for Columbia. Kaplan was shooting up into the stratosphere with his ability to direct.
Michael Vincent is such a tragedy, man.
I know.
Such a tragedy. That guy, he was such a big star. Or he had such potential, too.
Yeah.
But he would show up in all these movies, and people wanted him to be a movie star. He was such a horrible alcoholic.
Yeah.
Most people remember him from...
Airwolf?
Well, that, but also going on the Howard Stern show, just drunk off his ass.
Well, that was Airwolf. Almost got canceled like 40 times because he was just drunk all the time.
Didn't he die of alcoholism?
I think so. I think it was a liver thing. Yeah.
Poor guy. I mean, and it's another thing. It's just like, dude, don't exploit people's tragedy.
I know.
We were awful in the 90s, man. Awful.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Kaplan's next film was Mr. Billion, what he called his biggest failure of his career, which was released in 1977. It was an attempt to introduce Terence Hill, an Italian superstar, to American audiences in a big-budget action film. Apparently, Terence Hill was like a comedian, and they tried to make him an action guy, and all the reviews were like, why? Why? Like, why are you taking the thing he's good at and then making him do something else?
Because no speak good English, Gotta be funny in America.
It was very bad. It was like a $5 million budget. It made less than $1 million. Like, it was a huge flop.
I went back to Italy,
Yeah.
And I never came back.
Yes. So this led Kaplan to shoot Over the Edge in a more cinema verite style, using almost no known actors in the film. Michael Kramer was cast as Carl Willett. Over the Edge was Kramer's first feature film, receiving an introducing credit. He'd actually been in some shorts and 2 features prior, but this was his first leading role.
He effing killed it, man.
Oh, he's so good.
He's
so good in this.
Yeah, because he is so real.
Yeah.
You know,
dealing with his parents and he's just so spot on.
Yeah.
God, he's so good.
It was brilliant.
Kramer would take a break from acting after Over the Edge, not appearing in another film until Return to Horror High in 1987 at the age of 25.
Well worth the wait, baby.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I've never seen Return to Horror High. We definitely have to cover it because I just remember the skeleton cheerleader on the cover and being like, I have to see this movie.
Yeah.
That same year, he would appear in Project X, starring Matthew Broderick and directed by Jonathan Kaplan.
Yes, I with Matthew Broderick and a monkey. I'm going to save the monkey from the Project X.
Project X was one of those that was on TV, on Showtime, whatever, all the time. I loved that movie. It was such a guilty pleasure.
Of course. They were saving a monkey. Everybody loves monkeys.
Just poor monkeys, like, trying to do stuff. And how Matthew Broderick had such a connection with the monkeys.
I love you, monkey. I'm going to save you.
It was a good movie.
William Sadler was a bad guy. He's always a bad guy.
Michael Kramer would appear in 5 episodes of the 1988 TV series War of the Worlds, playing various parts.
Okay.
Through the 90s, Kramer would appear in a series of small bit parts in B-grade films. Currently, he has retired from acting as a clinical psychologist, working at the Manhattan campus of the Veterans Health Administration Medical Center in New York on post-traumatic stress disorder therapy using virtual reality.
That is brilliant. He probably got laid off. But that is brilliant. I love when they zag, and it's a shame that this kid didn't have a bigger career.
Yeah.
But it's the thing about the 70s, a lot of these kids didn't have big careers because they looked like kids.
Yeah.
He didn't have that, like, Vincent Spano, you know, or the most beautiful woman in the entire movie.
Matt Dillon.
Matt old Dillon. He was so beautiful. But yeah, I mean, in the 70s and early 80s, kids were kids, and they looked normal. Like, but, you know, then it just became, we got to cast these beauties, or we got to, everybody's got to be perfect.
By the time the 80s came in, it was like, no, we need to cast kids that don't look like kids. They look like models.
Kim Kilner, who played Abby, she looked so much like a 70s girl, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of pretty, but not kind of, you know what I mean? It's just like, just regular, normal.
Yeah, just like a kid.
Oh, my God.
So Matt Dillon was cast as Richie White. Dillon has received a Screen Actors Guild Award and 2 Independent Spirit Awards, as well as nominations for an Academy Award, a Golden Globe Award, and a Grammy Award.
Ooh.
The irony is that Dillon didn't even want to be an actor. He attended the audition for Over the Edge, his film debut, because he wanted to skip school.
I don't want to go to school.
He was so, that the most of Richie was him.
Yeah,
He wasn't really acting.
It's so funny. The most indicative photo to me of Matt Dillon, it's a still from The Outsiders. Mm-hmm. And everybody is giving the finger to the camera, except for Matt Dillon, who's just kind of sitting there like, this is stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
And that to me is Matt Dillon. This is stupid. He's just always kind of seemed his own way. And he was just this bad boy who's always playing the bad boy or the heartthrob through the 70s and 80s and did such a good job.
Yeah. Despite being dead in the movie, Dillon didn't want to miss out on the destruction at the end of the film, and there was actually one quick shot of him on top of a cop car destroying the lights.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was really funny because it came and went very quickly, but I was like, oh, yeah, that was him. But because he just wanted to destroy stuff. He was 14. He didn't care.
That scene would have been so much fun.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Dillon's performance in Over the Edge was well received, which led to his casting in 2 films released the following year. The teenage sex comedy Little Darlings, in which Christy McNichol's character loses her virginity to a boy from the camp across the lake, played by Dillon.
Now, this is another movie where the kids were so well portrayed. It was Christy McNichol and Tatum O'Neal made like a bet to lose their virginity or something.
Right, during the summer, yeah.
Right, during summer camp.
During camp, yeah.
And, but it was so poignant and well done.
Yeah.
And the whole losing of the virginity was so tragic and real.
Yeah.
And, I would put this in the same kind of cinema verite category as like this and maybe My Bodyguard a little bit. And especially these weird kind of teen camp and like Little Foxes. That was another one that was very real. There was a string of these movies, and I think mostly because of Over the Top.
Over the Edge.
Mostly because of Over the Edge. That there's a really great subclass of movies in the 70s, these teen movies, that are just coming of age, a slice of life that really, really capture what it was like to be a kid back then.
Yeah. He was also in the more serious teen dramedy My Bodyguard, where he played a high school bully opposite Chris Makepeace.
Love that movie.
The movies were released in March and July of 1980, where both were box office successes and turned Dillon into a teen heartthrob.
Well, I mean, those eyebrows and those lips and that scrawny little body and his little half shirts and that hair.
The attitude. Totally that kind of bad boy attitude.
He ruined so many women. Like girls, that's why they love the bad boys. Because he was like, we could tame him.
He would appear in 3 films adapted from S.E. Hinton's novels in just 2 years. Tex in 1982, reuniting with Haas and Hunter from Over the Edge.
I don't know if I've ever seen Tex.
It's about kids in Tulsa. Growing up in Tulsa and like kind of cowboyish and like I've never seen it.
I've read the book. I was a huge S.E. Hinton fan, as most kids, my age were. I mean, we were given The Outsiders in school, and then it's like this is
right.
The Socius and the Greasers. I don't know. I like this.
By the time I was like 10, they were trying to do that, and it's still at that point it looked so outdated. It was just like, all right.
Yeah, well, when it was only like 20 years ago when we were doing it in the 70s and 80s.
He was also in The Outsiders in 1983, directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh yeah, that launched the career of everybody. Tom Cruise,
so many people.
Patrick Swayze. Yeah,
it's a great movie. It's a great movie. It's done very, very well.
Soda Pop, played by what's his name from Parks and Rec? The really happy-go-lucky, super handsome dude.
Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe, Soda Pop.
And wasn't Ralph Macchio in that too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rashf Macchio was the star. Or no, not the star.
The Pony Boy. He was Pony Boy.
No.
Oh, no, he wasn't.
Pony Boy was, C. Thomas Howell was Pony Boy.
Yes.
And stay gold, Pony Boy, stay gold.
Yeah.
And Ralph Macchio was this little buddy that got burned up in the fire by saving socias.
Trying to save
kids, I think.
Save kids. Dillon was also in Rumblefish, also in 1983, and also directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
That one wasn't as good. It was in black and white. There was a lot of hype for it because of The Outsiders. It's a very different book, but because they had a lot of the same cast, people were just kind of like, eh.
It was really weird. All 3 of these movies were shot in Tulsa over essentially like a 10-month period.
Yeah.
And so it's like Matt Dillon just lived in Oklahoma for a while.
And it's so weird that Coppola did 2 S.E. Hinton books back to back.
Yeah, I want to say I think he also produced Tex, if I remember correctly. But he worked on the scripts with S.E. Hinton.
Yeah.
Like they were very much together. It is very odd. At some point, we'll cover all three of these movies because the story of it's just fascinating.
Well, also, like I said, to Gen X, probably the older Gen X, Gen X, S.E. Hinton was a huge part of our youth and schooling and you know.
Yeah.
It was all these, you know, whether it was this, whether the S.E. Hinton books or, you know, like Catcher in the Rye. It was all these great books about teenage rebellion and the kind of stuff that, we can't let the kids read it down because it'll go crazy. But the truth is, these were books that kind of gave voice to our crazy weird emotions and voice to like the frustrations of being a kid and class struggles and
it was about these kids that felt like they were alone and you reading it made you feel it's like, wow, I have these feelings too,
because we all felt like
normal
outsiders. Adam.
I loved Catcher in the Rye. It's such a good book.
Oh my god, they never made that into a movie, did they?
No. It was because of Salinger. Salinger refused.
Well, good.
Yeah,
I don't think you could have done it.
No. Matt Dillon won an Independent Spirit Award for Best Male Lead in 1990 for Drugstore Cowboy, directed by Gus Van Sant.
Such a goddamn good movie.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen Drugstore Cowboy.
Yeah, that I get that confused sometimes with My Own Private Idaho.
Yeah,
but
a lot of kids that are high.
But Heather Graham was so good in that.
Yeah,
and I forget who the other leads were, but it was just such a heartbreaking movie, man.
Yeah,
and a really great depiction of addiction.
He won his second Independent Spirit Award for Crash in 2005, which also garnered him an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor, but he lost to George Clooney for Syriana.
Great, because Crash is one of the worst movies ever made. His performance, I am sorry, but it was so cliched. I'm the racist guy, but I'm going to touch you.
Crash is probably the worst movie to win Best Picture.
Oh, 100%. Everybody hated that movie. It was that was the year that everybody was like, the Academy Awards is just a political bullshit.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that this hackneyed...
But no, but Jim, Crash solved racism.
Oh, it did. It did solve racism.
And then the Academy patted itself on the back and said, look, we solved racism.
It did. And, and ever since then, it's just been a perfect utopia.
They do every year a couple years after, the Academy does a revote thing and like to see if they were correct on who won Best Picture.
Yeah.
And 99% of people voted for whatever else over Crash that year. Like, it was such a bad choice.
If you want to watch a good Crash, watch Cronenberg's Crash.
Oh, yeah. That's so weird and creepy.
That'll tickle your ivories, baby. That's a weird movie, but really interesting.
It's very interesting, yes.
I love that movie.
Better.
Not a movie you can watch a million times, but...
And if you want to watch a better Matt Dillon movie that came out a little bit before that, watch There's Something About Mary.
Yes!
He's so funny in that movie.
Oh, my God, with those choppers.
Oh, my God. He played comedy so well.
That's the thing. Matt Dillon is fascinating, dude.
Yeah.
He's another one of those guys that redefined himself so many times because you don't look at this beautiful little boy with his Farrah Fawcett hairdo and his half shirts and, his little attitude and his yabba-dabba-doo, and think that he's going to be the guy that's in Something About Mary. The guy that's starring in all of these crazy European films that he is now. The guy has redefined himself so many times. And I will always have a soft spot for him. I think he's...
It's really interesting. I think his career entered its third act when he did The House That Jack Built in 2019.
Right.
It was kind of a weird serial killer horror movie, which was very controversial. Yeah, like it definitely split audiences a lot. But after that, I think the pandemic happened, and he went to Europe, and has been making all these French movies and Italian movies, and just like is that the thing that's going to come out sometime this year, The Fence, which is from acclaimed French director Claire Denis, who made I can't remember. There was another movie that people claim is one of the best movies ever made. I've never seen it, but it's just not something that I would expect him to do.
Well, that's the thing. I'm not surprised because it really seems like if you look at his early career, he was never one to really jump into blockbusters or
no.
He didn't seem like he wanted to be a movie star.
I don't even think he really I think he just found he was good at acting. And he was like, all right,
I guess I have to do it.
I'm going to keep doing it. This is better than being an insurance salesman.
But he's also a guy, and I'm pretty sure that he hasn't directed or written anything.
I don't think so.
I think he's just an actor, which is fine. I think it's fine. He's a very good actor, and there are very, very few people that started as a child actor that graduated to adulthood and was still good. And not just good, he was better. The thing I will say about Matt Dillon is he never rested on his laurels.
No.
He always seemed to be challenging himself. And even in bad movies, he's another guy that never gives a bad performance, except for Crash. I didn't like his performance of Crash was very hackneyed, but that's not his fault.
He was directed that way, and it was
nobody got away unscathed in that movie. Everybody looked like crap.
It was not.
Good. And his whole racist cop thing. I'm gonna pat you down. I'm gonna touch your places. Touch your places. You don't want to be touched. I'm going to feel bad about it. I'm going to feel bad, and then we'll be friends, and maybe we'll be lovers.
Oh, my white burden. Oh.
That movie makes me want to punch the world.
Pamela Ludwig was cast as Corey. Why can't I remember his name? What's Michael Kramer's character's name? Carl. Carl's girlfriend, kind of girlfriend. Well, they liked each other, and they spent the night together.
Well, there's a little bit of a triangle between Vincent Spano's Mark.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yes, kind of. But but it was the reaction of her being with Mark that she was like, "No, wait a minute. Maybe I should be into him."
Yeah.
Like he really cares.
One of the great things in this movie is the Vincent Spano, his relationship with Carl.
Yeah.
Where he and his buddy are just dicks.
Yeah, they
bullies.
shot the cop car out, which essentially starts the movie.
Right.
Causes the cops to be on edge and blaming other people.
Yeah, and he gets brought in. Carl gets brought in, and Richie gets brought in, but they won't snitch.
Yeah.
And that's where Richie says, "I only got one law. A kid who tells on another kid is dead."
Yeah.
He tells that to the cop, too, by the way. The cop's like, "Oh, that's okay."
You know we live in a subdivision, right? This isn't just a...
But yeah, I mean, Carl had a crush on Corey. He goes down to the party. And this was, again, too, such a seminal part of being a kid is you go to the party, you see the girl, you're like making out with somebody else, and you're just crestfallen.
Yeah.
And you want to leave, and your buddy's like, "Where you going? What's wrong?" And you're like, "Oh, nothing. I just got to get out of here." And then, to add insult to injury, they jump him.
He gets jumped because he didn't snitch, but he just wanted to make sure that he knew that if he ever did...
But then...
God, they beat the crap out of him.
And that's another thing. That fight was so... I've had those fights.
Yeah.
You know? And then the beauty of it is he sees Mark riding around on his motorbike.
Yeah, later. Yeah, when he's on the run.
And he Mark leaves his BB gun there. So Carl shoots Mark while he's riding his motorcycle, taking a jump, wipes out in the mud, eats shit. And he's like, "That was pretty cool."
That was a pretty good shot. Were you aiming from a nose?
Yeah, let's be friends.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it yesterday. I had 2 or 3 best friends in grade school and middle school that we literally fought each other as enemies and then became friends.
Yeah.
There was this rite of passage with best friends back then that you had to fight and then you could be friends.
Yeah, Danny Ponks. It was we fought in middle school, fifth grade, I think, 6th grade. And then after we fought, he invited me over to watch WrestleMania on his giant satellite.
Yeah.
It was just like we became best friends. Yeah.
It was so weird. Yeah. I think that's probably where my love of enemies becoming friends were because I lived it.
Yeah.
And I think, and it was great. And the really great part, so we get through all this and Carl still be kind of a dick and Mark's like, "Hey, we're going to start this thing over again? I thought we were friends now."
Yeah, that was like, he didn't go there. He could have, but he was like, all right.
And then, when they're all getting together, for the big thing at the end, and Spano comes walking up, and Carl and Corey are there, and he puts his arm around Corey, and Spano looks like, "Oh, I'm going to be pissed."
Yeah.
And then he's like,
"You're a good soldier."
Yeah. And then they give they did the handshake and they were buddies.
Yeah,
and he realized, who cares? It's just a broad.
Yeah.
But You know, I mean,
She
that's
was also like 14, and I think he was supposed to be like 18.
yeah,
It
weird.
was a little weird.
But again, it was so. I mean, that was so spot on realistic. That whole bit, everything about it.
Yeah. So Over the Edge was Ludwig's feature debut. She would also later appear in Tex and Project X.
I also love the fact that this director is extremely loyal to his actors.
Oh, he is.
You know?
Yeah, and the writers, because Tex was from Tim Hunter, one of the writers.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they found people they liked, and they worked with him all the time.
Yeah, and good actors that weren't getting cast.
Yeah. She appeared in an episode of V in 1985. Ludwig actually suggested to the producers to use Cheap Trick in the soundtrack for the film.
Great.
She was a big fan.
Well, as we all were back then.
Yeah. For the rest of the 80s, Ludwig appeared in tepidly reviewed B movies, culminating in Pale Blood in 1990, co-starring Wings Hauser.
Love Wings Hauser.
It's a weird movie.
He just died recently.
Oh, did he?
Wings Hauser, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen Pale Blood. She plays an interviewer or a journalist that gets hired by a private investigator, but she's obsessed with vampires. It's super weird.
Yeah. No, I'm positive I saw this.
Yeah. But she retired after the movie, and I honestly could not find any info about what she's up to now. I know she had some kids in like 95.
Okay.
But beyond that, I don't know what she's doing.
Well, good for her.
But she got to the point through the 80s, and I think she was kind of like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And
it is, and it was, very tough for women actors
Yeah.
to age and get work.
yeah.
The expiration date was disgusting, and still is, but it's not as bad
Well,
as it
and
was.
she and no zero offense to Pamela Ludwig, but like we were saying earlier, she didn't really fit into the mold of what an 80s like ingenue would be.
No.
Like she wasn't pretty enough like in that way of being like supermodel type and like you know.
Super hot for the 70s.
Yeah.
But that was like, that's the thing. We were talking about this too. Like makeup in the 70s was basically some lip gloss, maybe
Yeah.
some eyeshadow, maybe some eyeliner.
Maybe.
And that was it. There were
Yeah.
no makeup tutorials
If
back
you
then.
even did any of that.
Nobody
Yeah.
gave a shit. They all looked
No.
the same. They all had ragamuffin clothes. Nobody gave a crap what they looked like. They just wanted to hang out, make out,
Yeah.
smoke grass.
Harry Northup was cast as Sergeant Doberman.
Oh, Doberman.
Northup has appeared in 37 films over a 50-year career. This includes Martin Scorsese's first 6 films.
Who's that knocking at my door? Boxcar Bertha, Mean Streets, Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Taxi Driver, and New York, New York.
He also appeared in a number of Jonathan Demme films.
Crazy Mama, Fighting Mad, Handle with Care, The Silence of the Lambs, Philadelphia, Beloved, and The Manchurian Candidate.
That was the newer,
Yes.
say newer one, which is 25 years ago, at least 25 years ago.
It wasn't the one with Frank Sinatra.
No, it was the one with Denzel Washington. He would also work with Jonathan Kaplan on some of his other films after Over the Edge.
Project X, Unlawful Entry, Bad Girls, and Broke Down Palace.
By the way, Bad Girls was another one of those that was on TV all the time.
That was the one with Madeline Stowe.
I had no idea it was Jonathan Kaplan.
Neither did I. And that was Drew Barrymore, Madeline Stowe, and some other woman. It was like a Western.
Yeah, Western, yeah. With
they were
them,
like prostitutes
they
or
were,
something.
yeah, and they had to essentially band together and try to take on this bad gang or whatever.
To do that, they had to become bad girls. You know, also, Unlawful Entry, I believe that was with Kurt Russell and Ray Liotta.
Yes, I think yes.
That's what I'm thinking of. It was a really underrated movie.
Yeah,
really cool about a cop that was harassing this couple.
Yeah.
Really good.
Even Broke Down Palace. That's the one with Claire
Claire Danes.
Claire Danes, which I remember being a good movie.
Yeah.
Like it was. I think Jonathan Kaplan was a very underrated director.
I agree. I agree 100%. Because his movies were original, different, and intimate.
Yeah.
Even Project X, which was kind of a, space, blah, 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 was a very intimate film about this,
Yeah.
training monkeys
about
to go to space.
saving these monkeys
Yeah.
and treat it. Yeah, it's good. And at some point we'll definitely cover Jonathan Kaplan more. But I didn't even include any of the stuff that in most of the '90s and 2000s he was just working in TV.
Yeah.
like he essentially co-created ER.
Yeah.
like he directed a bunch of the episodes. I think he directed the pilot.
Yeah.
like he worked on so much TV. Like he's just such a good director.
Well, ER was a perfect vehicle for him because it was also kind of cinema verite.
Yeah.
And it, at least at the beginning. I mean,
Very
it got a little
real. Yeah.
outlandish
Yeah.
towards the end. I really enjoyed that show. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I think his style and sense really was apt for that. And that's the thing about him. He is a small storyteller.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He's a very personal storyteller who gets human beings correct.
Yes. So Northup's final credit is a short film called Carry Tiger to Mountain in 2018. He's still around, but he's retired at the age of 84.
Good for him. I mean, that he's still around.
Yeah.
But also, hey, that guy had a really good career. And to be in 5 Scorsese movies?
6.
To be in 6 Scorsese movies,
well, and
arguably some of the best.
To have people like Scorsese and Jonathan Demme and Jonathan Kaplan be like, call you up and be like, hey, I'm doing a movie, you got to play part. That is something.
I wonder if they met. I wonder if he was a Corman guy.
I am sure he probably was involved in early Corman stuff.
Well, I mean, if he was in Boxcar Bertha.
Yeah, and Who's That Knocking at My Door, which was a very much Corman movie.
Yeah.
I think that was in '67, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so yes, but he had a great career, and to be honest, he was good in this.
Very good.
Like it was so. I wanted him to be so much better in the movie and stop making dumb decisions.
Yeah.
But it's like, and he paid for it,
But he was every cop, man, back then, and it was. There was I had an incident with a sheriff when I was like 16 years old, where our alarm went off.
Right.
And I turned it off, but I must not have turned it off at enough time.
Right.
So I'm about to get into the shower, and I hear something downstairs. And I come walking downstairs in a towel, mind you, and I go around the corner, and there's a sheriff with his gun drawn, pointing right at my chest, cocks it.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa.
It's like, I'm naked, I live here.
Well, that's the thing. He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I live here. I was like, yeah, I turned it off. And I gave him the code or whatever, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I need to see some ID. I'm like, look, man, I'm in a towel. I got to go upstairs. My ID's upstairs. So I go upstairs, and look, if I was a criminal, would he let me go upstairs by myself?
No, of course not. He just wanted to be a dick.
Exactly. So I get my clothes, and I can't find my license, but I find my library card or school ID or something, and I was like, he's like, I need something with the address. I'm like, look, dude, there's pictures of me everywhere. Either I am the greatest thief of all time, or I effing live here. And he's like, fine, but your parents better give me a call because you have a serious attitude problem. And so, and this is another reason, this was a point on the old man's favor, is, he called up the folks, and they were like, sounds like you were the one with the attitude problem, pal. And because I had told them what had happened. And they stood up to the sheriff, and then the sheriff was like, well, maybe next time the alarm goes off, we won't show up. So they were like, that's illegal. They reported him, and he either got fired or suspended.
Yeah, suspended.
But that was the thing. All of the cops, and I think this is probably the same thing, all of the cops in Escondido were the failed football players who couldn't get into college.
Yeah.
And
the Army didn't want them.
The Army didn't want them. So they were just these high school jocks that never evolved and were complete dicks.
Right.
And I think, Sergeant Doberman was a little bit more nuanced than that because you can see his frustration and you can get it, man. Like, the kids are kids, but there's only so much you can take.
Yeah, you can only be berated for so long before you start lashing out.
And look, man, the whole scene with Matt Dillon pulling the gun, he didn't know if that gun was loaded or not.
I know.
I don't think he did the right thing by shooting Matt Dillon, but I also...
he might have gotten shot.
Right. His reaction to that was horrible.
Yeah. His defense of him shooting a child.
Yes.
No remorse.
Yes. But
it was either him or me, man.
But that's the beauty of this movie. There are no bad guys. They're just people living their lives and dealing and reacting. And we all have bad days. We all have human emotions, and we react in bad ways sometimes.
Yeah. You could even read the fact that the way he reacted so violently about it is that he really blamed himself.
Felt guilty.
Like he had so much guilt about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the brilliant part of this. That's the brilliance of this movie.
And then the fact that he couldn't let it go.
Yeah.
When they finally got out, he was so humiliated. He was so upset and so mad at these kids.
Oh, yeah. He had to chase him down.
That he had to get him, and he had to get Carl, because to him, Carl was the ringleader, and he had to push back, and he had to get revenge.
Even though he wasn't.
No.
He was just kind of there.
And then Carl gives up. The crazy thing is when they crash, I was sure that Carl's arm was going to be broken because he was.
Yeah, oh yeah, the way they, yeah.
But you know, I felt kind of bad that he died. You know,
he didn't look. He was not a great cop.
No,
but he did not deserve to die.
Shouldn't have been a cop. But should have lost his job.
But it was hoisted by his own petard, man. Like, he went too far with it.
His hubris, his wanton lust for revenge, and his insecurity is what killed him. And that's such a human thing. You know, yes, the ending is a bit over the top, but it still is believable. I didn't ever feel like, oh, this movie's completely out of control. It's crazy. Because the kids didn't do anything the kids wouldn't do.
Right.
Breaking windows, starting fires, lighting fireworks.
Yeah.
You know, just being dumb kids. And the thing about kids, when kids start doing something, the other kids are going to join in.
Yeah.
You know, it's just peer pressure is not a joke.
You get permission.
Yeah. Once you see everybody doing it, either you run away or you join in.
Right.
You know? And these kids were fed up.
So Vincent Spano was cast as Mark Perry. Spano started his career on Broadway at the age of 14 in The Shadow Box, which would win the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award for Best Play.
I really like Spano. I thought he might have been a little miscast in this because he wasn't as scary, but that's also kind of what was cool about it, was that the bullies weren't your typical bullies.
No, once you really sat down and looked at them, it was like, you're just some skinny, scared kid.
Yeah, I was iffy about him until the motorbike scene.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay.
It's and you get that little glimpse into like, you live in a tent in the mud flats?
Yeah.
Like, this is sad.
Yeah.
Spano actually shot his feature film debut in The Double MacGuffin in the winter of 1978 from Benji creator Joe Camp.
Yeah, that was like his one non-dog movie, right?
Yeah, no, he did a couple non-dog, but that was his first non-dog movie. Over the Edge was shot after The Double MacGuffin, but was released the month before.
Ooh.
Spano was up for the more prominent role of Richie, which eventually went to Matt Dillon. With no hard feelings, Spano actually helped guide Dillon through the production process to make him more comfortable with being an actor.
That's great. And he wouldn't have been. Matt Dillon is just Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
There's just he's an anomaly. He's an enigma.
Doesn't have that attitude.
No,
the don't give a shit attitude.
That's the thing. Dillon was so good at being a shitty teenager.
Yeah.
So much better. It was the most realistic shitty teenager, and he was so good at it. Whether it was this, My Bodyguard, Little Foxes, he could play a shitty teenager better than anybody.
Spano appeared in A Stranger Is Watching in 1982, the first movie from Sean S. Cunningham after Friday the 13th, written by Earl Mac Rausch and Victor Miller.
Ooh, I remember. What do we know?
Earl Mac Rausch was the 25th. I bought you the book. The
Buckaroo Banzai.
Buckaroo Banzai. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it. Earl Mac Rausch created Buckaroo Banzai, and obviously Sean S. Cunningham, which we covered Friday the 13th. So listen to that. But Strangers Watching was supposed to be his big breakout, but it wasn't. It did not do well.
Oh
no.
Spano never hit.
No, he really did. I mean, kind of. Not really. I mean, he did become a teen heartthrob in 1983. He was in 3 movies that year. He was in Baby It's You, co-starring Rosanna Arquette, which was directed by John Sayles.
John Sayles is an absolute genius, and that's a really good movie.
Brilliant movie, yeah. Rosanna Arquette's so good. The Black Stallion Returns, which was produced by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah.
Which, yes, I agree. It was a sequel to a movie, but it made him a huge heartthrob.
People love the Black Stallion, baby.
Yeah. And he was also in Rumblefish, directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
He was.
It's weird. Spano was Italian. His parents were very Italian. But he was one of those guys that, like in The Black Stallion Returns and in Baby It's You, he kind of played vaguely Mideastern.
He had an interesting career. Nobody really knew what to do with Vincent Spano.
Yeah.
I don't even think Vincent Spano knew what to do with Vincent Spano.
No.
But he was just kind of like a peripheral guy who had a couple of good years.
Yeah.
You know, and he was a decent actor. He just never really got to that next level.
When he was young, he actually, in doing the Broadway stuff, when he was young, his agent made him change his name to Vincent Stewart. And when he was signing autographs, made him sign it as Vincent Stewart because he was like, oh, no, you want to ignore all the Italian stuff. And so later in life, by the time he was 16 or 17 and doing stuff like Over the Edge, he embraced his Italian heritage and has been in a bunch of Italian movies in the last 10 years.
Oh, good.
Like he's been all about finding that Italian heritage and celebrating it.
Look, I've always enjoyed Spano.
Yeah. He's had a very long career, most recently appearing in The Contract, featuring Kevin Spacey in his big comeback. That came out in 2024. He'll next be seen, Spano, not Spacey, will be seen in the upcoming Dante's Inferni, playing Virgil, which is an Italian movie that is based on
Dante's Inferno.
Dante's Inferno.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know Kevin Spacey was coming back.
Yeah,
I missed the memo.
I think, funny enough, in The Contract, I think he plays the devil.
Yeah?
Kevin Spacey, I'm pretty sure. I didn't look too deep into it because it just makes me sad.
It's such a shame. Kevin Spacey is such a great actor.
He was one of the best interviews I ever had, and it makes me so sad that he's such a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Scumbag.
Such a scumbag. It just makes me so sad. He's such a good actor.
Me too, but that,
It's I can't. I mean, I don't. I'm curious about The Contract, but I can't watch an old bloated Kevin Spacey.
I can't watch. We talked about this before. I can't watch Kevin Spacey. I can't watch
Will Smith.
Post slap.
No more Bill Cosby.
No more. Well, not for his movies, but for dating advice. But it's just a bummer. Like so many of our Gen X.
I know.
They just staples are one of the biggest heartbreaks of all. Mel Gibson.
Oh God, he went full nuts.
Oh my God, sugar tits.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, don't call me that.
He broke.
It's really too bad. He went full crazy.
Well, the fact that he's working now after breaking a woman's jaw.
Yeah.
Drunkenly, it just shows what a just disparate, soulless,
I know,
business
awful
this is.
Place
Sometimes
Hollywood is, yeah. So Tom Fergus was cast as Claude Zachary, the resident druggie in the movie.
My favorite character.
He's so good
because he's not. He's so. The kids that did acid and shit, the kids that did the real drugs were the smart kids.
My high school, our valedictorian literally did acid every day.
Sure.
Every day. And he was the smartest kid I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the fact that he was able to do so many drugs and still literally aced everything was number one in our school by a lot. Just blew my mind.
But he was the smart kid, even though he wore overalls. His osh gosh bagosh. But yeah, like I said, that scene of him doing acid was one of the best acid representations I've ever seen.
So realistic. Yeah.
And he was just the kid that liked to have a good time. He's still a party kid.
And even at the end, he was a good kid. At the end, when Corey was like, "Where's Mark?" Or not Mark. Where's
Carl?
Carl. Where's Carl? I need to find Carl. And he's like, "I don't know." And she's like, "I just want to go home." She had been part of an explosion, and her face was all messed up. And he was like, "All right, I'll take you home. I'll make sure you get home."
Yeah.
Because he was a good kid.
He was a good kid, and he was one of the kids waving at poor Carl when he was going off the juvie.
Yeah.
It was him and his girlfriend and. Oh, little Johnny.
Little Johnny.
You got every movie in the 70s, every kid's movie, you had to have a character named Johnny. So you go, "Hey, Johnny, what's going on, Johnny? Where's Johnny?"
So Over the Edge is Tom Fergus's only film. He's now a lawyer in New York, practicing since 1997.
Cool.
And despite what IMDb says, and I was very sad to find out this wasn't true, this Fergus is not the Tom Fergus that played 726 games of professional hockey.
That bums me out, because you mentioned that yesterday.
I did, because I thought it was, but IMDb is wrong.
Well, he's another kid that looks so much like a kid.
Yeah.
You know? There's no heartthrob. All these kids had such jacked up teeth, and they were just regular effing kids.
Yeah. Just kids being kids.
So good, and they were so good. Such good actors.
Andy Romano was cast as Fred Willett, Carl's dad.
Yeah, you'd recognize him.
He's been a ton of stuff. Romano is best known for playing J.D., an outlaw motorcyclist and right-hand henchman of the character Eric Von Zipper, played by Harvey Lembeck, in the 1960s Beach Party film starring Annette Funicello and Frankie Avalon.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Beach Blanket Bingo.
Oh, yeah. He made 6 Beach Party movies in 4 years, between 1963 and 1966. Which I did a lot of research on when I wrote that short play for Jim.
Right, I played Paul Lind
in Beach Blanket Bingo, yeah. Such a weird series of movies. That whole era was so strange.
Well, it was just, that's, you want to talk about idealized bullshit teenagers.
Yeah.
First of all, they were all 30.
Yeah.
Boondoggy and all of them. And it was just the most romanticized, ridiculous version of teenagers ever. If you want to see the opposite of Over the Edge, watch the Beach Blanket Bingo movies.
When the beach party market dried up, he moved to TV, appearing in
Batman, Bewitched, Here Come the Brides, The FBI, Mod Squad, The Bold Ones, The Lawyers, Get Christy Love, Quincy, M.E., MASH, Magnum P.I., Hill Street Blues, The A-Team, T.J. Hooker, Highway to Heaven, and Columbo.
He did return to feature films in 1979, appearing in 2 other films along with Over the Edge, The One-Man Jury, starring Jack Palance, which really seemed like a ripoff of the Charles Bronson movies. Or no, Charles Bronson, sorry, the Dirty Harry movies.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it seemed like a total ripoff of the Dirty Harry movies.
One-Man Jury, was he a cop that just killed people?
He had a gun with a silencer on the cover. I was just like, okay. Yes, yeah. And he was also in Love and Bullets, starring Charles Bronson.
That's right, Pally.
Yeah, another,
I fell in love.
Action movie.
I fell in love with some bullets, and then I used them to kill Pally.
He also appeared in Return to Horror High in 1987, Remo Williams' The Prophecy, the TV pilot movie sequel to Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins.
Listen to our Remo Williams episode.
He was in Major League in 1989.
Yeah, he was one of the owners or something?
Pepper. Yeah, he was. No, I think he was one of the coaches.
Oh, okay.
Pepper something in the movie. Which, again, I think he was... Don't quote me on that. It's been a long time since I've seen Major League.
Yeah.
Pump Up the Volume in 1990.
I think he played Christian Slater's dad in that one.
I believe he did. He was in Mobsters and in Bugsy in 1991.
Ugh, Mobsters. Bleh. Bugsy, not bad.
Bugsy's okay, yeah. The Fugitive in 1993.
Yeah, baby.
Such a great movie.
Dr. Richard Kimball.
He was the one-armed man. Yeah.
Roundhouse, Hen House, Mouse, Doghouse.
He was in Drop Zone in 1994. That was with... Blade.
Wesley Snipes.
Yes, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Yes, Drop Zone.
That was like one of the... Where they had all these goddamn parachute movies.
That was the movie where Wesley Snipes did the quote, "Always bet on black," and then he jumped out the plane while it blew up or whatever. Yeah.
Epic.
Such a bad movie. Such a bad movie. But better than Under Siege 2, Dark Territory in 1995, which was essentially Under Siege, except not on a boat. It was on a train.
Oh, yeah. And that was against Steven Seagal.
It was bad.
Under Siege, the first movie, was good.
It was entertaining. Under Siege 2 was not.
No. It was awful. It was awful. I have a soft spot for Steven Seagal movies.
Yes.
Not for the man.
Cheer foo! Cheer foo!
I can't move my legs because I'm fat.
I don't remember what episode it was we talked about the him getting choked out and pooping himself.
Yes.
But you definitely find that story. It's a fun story, so you need to find it.
Yes, it is.
In 1986, he was in Eraser, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
Which was
not very good.
Oh, they have these guns that can shoot through walls.
Yeah, it was some weird kind of sci-fi-ish.
Protecting Vanessa Williams from death.
Yeah. But in 1996, he was also in Ghosts of Mississippi. Romano appeared in 8 episodes of NYPD Blue between 95 and 96. His final feature film was Heaven or Vegas in 1999, starring Yasmin Bleeth and Richard Grieco.
Well, after that, he chose Heaven.
If you ever are asked to do a movie and the 2 leads are Yasmin Bleeth and Richard Grieco, run.
Yeah, and this is 99 Richard Grieco.
Yeah.
This isn't Booker Richard Grieco when he was on fire.
Romano retired from acting shortly after and moved to Washington State. He passed away on September 14th, 2022 at the age of 86.
No.
Yeah.
He was a great character actor.
But he had a good 20 years of hanging out and doing his own thing.
He was also very good in this movie.
He was so good in this movie.
We talk about how realistic the kids were, but the parents were very realistic too.
God, he didn't know how to parent. I shouldn't say that. He was trying his best.
Well, like I said, these 70s parents, you didn't have the mom who was staying home.
Yeah.
You had 2 parents working. They didn't really know how to parent. They knew the belt and all the crap that their boomer parents were,
right.
showing them. And so it was like this balance between, I don't want to be a complete asshole like my parents, but I don't know how to keep these kids in line. And it was a very honest portrayal. Especially Ellen Greer, who played his mom, too. She was amazing.
Ellen Geer.
Geer, sorry. Ellen Gear. But all of the parents seemed also very realistic.
Yeah,
You know, in terms of how do we deal with these kids? I couldn't imagine being a parent and your kids just getting in trouble all the time.
Right.
These are good kids, smart kids, but they got nothing else to do.
For me, the Romano's speech during the final scene with when they're all in the cafetorium or whatever, hanging out, and him understanding the fact that he's like, we're not listening to the kids. Like, they are crying out to us, telling us what they need, and we're not listening. And it's, for him, it was a short monologue, but from that, going all the way back to when he smacked his own kid, it's like he had such a huge growth of like, we need to do something else.
And he instantly regretted slapping his kid.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was like, that's his father in him.
Yeah.
That was his father coming out, the frustration. And it was just brilliant that way.
It was done so well. Ellen Gear, as you mentioned, played the mom, Sandra Willett. I know Gear, it's so hard to not say Greer.
I know.
Gear is the daughter of Will Gear, the actor who played Grandpa Zeb on The Waltons.
Oh, yeah.
Her feature film debut was in Petulia in 1968, starring Julie Christie, George C. Scott, and Richard Chamberlain.
All right.
In 1971, she appeared in 2 films, Koch, directed by Jack Lemmon, starring Walter Matthau.
I love that movie.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I just love that Jack Lemmon's directing. I think that's great.
We have to do like 2 months of Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
She was also in Harold Maude, directed by Hal Ashby.
Love that movie. Love that movie so much.
Movie.
It is so weird.
Funny. It's so funny. And after Until Over the Edge, she only appeared in 2 films, both of which she wrote and starred her father, both released in 1974, Silence and The Memory of Us.
All right, cool.
Yeah. She appeared in a number of films throughout the years.
Bloody Birthday, Heart Like a Wheel, Something Wicked This Way Comes, Creator, Big Shots, Lonely Hearts, Patriot Games, Clear and Present Danger, Phenomena, and Practical Magic.
She's also had a very long career on TV, most recently appearing in NCIS in 2019.
I remember her in Clear and Present Danger and Patriot Games. I think she was like one of the people working with Harrison Ford.
Yes, I think she was working in his office or like part of his department or whatever.
Yeah, she was one of the like anti-terrorism people.
Yeah.
Great, solid actor.
Yeah, great actor. She did the whole time in the 70s when she wasn't appearing in movies. She did a bunch of TV movies. Yeah. She was in TV a lot. Like she had a very long career.
Again, once you see her, you would totally recognize her.
She's served since 1978 as artistic director of the Will Gear Theatricum Botanicum, a professional repertory open-air theater in Topanga Canyon, just about 20 minutes from us.
That's awesome, but what a pretentious name. The Will Gear Theatricum Botanicum.
It's funny because I've heard of this for the last 20 years and had no idea that was the Grandpa Zeb.
Neither did I.
From the Waltons. She is now retired, enjoying life at the age of 83.
Well, she earned it.
Yeah.
She's so good in this movie.
Julia Pomeroy was cast as Julia, the rec center director.
She was so spot on. Like somebody could look at this movie and be like, "Oh man, the acting's so flat and the acting's so whatever," and it's like, no.
It was
real. So realistic.
Real, yeah.
And she came across. We all knew those teachers or those authority figures that were like, "Hey man, just chill out.
It's all good.
Be cool." That understood kids because they're not too far from being kids.
Yeah.
And they understand that kids need some room to push boundaries and stuff. And, and you got to pick your battles. And the way she ran the rec center was brilliant. You know?
It was like
she wouldn't let him get away with shit, but she also let him get away with little shit.
Yeah, it's like you do your thing. You know, you're figuring out who you are as a person.
Yeah, but if you break the rules, you got to leave.
Yeah. She was the daughter of an armed services foreign officer born in Okinawa and lived in Libya, Somalia, and Italy as she grew up.
Ooh.
She was cast as Julia, the head of the rec center, because she was actually running a rec center at the time.
That's great.
Yeah. Over the Edge is her only film. After the birth of her first child, she graduated magna cum laude with a degree in literature and writing from Columbia University, and she's now a novelist.
Awesome. How amazing. She was really, really good.
She was great in this. Lane Smith was cast as Sloane. Smith is a character actor that you've seen in almost everything, including
Rooster Cogburn, Network, Between the Lines, The Bad News Bears, and Breaking Training, Red Dawn, Native Son, Air America, My Cousin Vinny, The Mighty Ducks, Son-in-Law, and The Legend of Bagger Vance.
Yeah, he plays Sloane in this, who insisted on being called Roy. He was a Texan that came in to do business.
Yeah.
And then that whole weird scene where they're like taking stuff into the house and taking stuff out. And they put the fireworks inside the car.
Well, they were staying at the house because that was like a just a place for them to stay while they were evaluating the area and the land to put up the factory that was going to replace according to whomever, the bowling alley or the miniature golf course and the drive-in or duplex. But yeah, so they put the firecrackers, which was brilliant. And then it almost seemed like when they were leaving, like they wanted a reason to not be part of the community.
Yeah. Like they were like it's like one excuse to be like, no, we're done.
Yeah, which seemed kind of weird.
It was weird. The whole thing was
weird.
But
it just seemed like they didn't really want to be there, and they didn't. And it gave them the one excuse to get out of town.
But it was really funny because when he appeared on screen, it took me so long to figure out who he was because he kept saying, "You can call me Roy," and it was like, no, his character's name was Sloan. But it's like, but the fact is, as soon as he showed up, both of us were like, "Wait, it's that guy!"
Yeah,
like it's that guy, Lane Smith.
He's just got this kind of. He played a lot of Texans.
That kind of drawl.
He's just got this way about him that was played a lot of politicians.
He's so good.
Yeah.
He appeared in 13 episodes of V in 1984 and 84 episodes of Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman as Perry White.
Perry White, yes.
Which is what I remember him most from.
Jesus, we need to watch V. Apparently everybody was in V.
It was huge. His last role was in Out of Order, the TV miniseries in 2003. Smith was diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, in April of 2004.
Tragic.
He died of complications from the disease at home in Northridge on June 13th, 2005, at the age of 69.
So young.
Too young. So while Kaplan was in New York casting the main roles, the writers were casting extras from the Denver area. The local junior high schools kept sending them kids from drama clubs, and neither of them thought that any of these kids could really pull off the delinquent kids they were trying to portray.
Do you want to hear me sing Cats?
So instead, they scoured around and found the kids secretly smoking weed around campus and hired them to work on the film.
This was the most brilliant idea ever.
They also went to one of you know how like when the kids got really bad, they'd be sent to that special school?
Yeah.
They also went to that school and hired a bunch of those kids to come in and be in the movie.
The reform school?
Yeah, the reform school, yeah. Filming took place in Aurora and Greeley in Colorado in the summer of 1978. The film features the Atari Video Music, which produced the geometric patterns that Claude and Johnny watch on TV.
Oh, yeah, baby. Nothing like getting your acid on and watching them weird patterns.
It was a music visualizer released a year earlier in 1977. They were very popular in the early days of cable TV when there was no MTV.
Listen to our Atari episode if you'd like to learn more about it.
The shot of Carl saying, "I've had enough," during the riot was actually a reshoot done in California months after principal photography concluded in Colorado. It was inserted into the film at the insistence of the studio to make Carl more sympathetic than his fellow teen rioters.
Yeah, I bet the studio was kind of shitting bricks on this one.
They did. They really did. In fact, the movie was called On the Edge until the post-production process in the studio changed it to Over the Edge because of the ending of the movie.
Not to be confused with Over the Hedge, which was a cartoon with Bruce Willis, based on a comic strip about a raccoon.
So Over the Edge debuted on May 18th, 1979 in 8 cities in the United States on a test run basis, with the biggest release in Charlotte, North Carolina. But due to the negative publicity surrounding a wave of recent youth gang films such as The Warriors, The Wanderers, and Boulevard Nights, Over the Edge was given a limited theatrical release in 1979.
The movie is nothing like any of those movies.
I know. The studio was actually afraid of riots happening during screenings of the film. It's like, oh, kids are going to be watching them destroy everything at the end, and they're just going to destroy everything.
Studio heads are idiots, and it's insulting to children.
Critics actually really liked the film. They saw it despite it being released in very, very limited theatrical. Roger Ebert said the film's
violent climax is particularly unconvincing.
But the movie captured...
Let me do that again.
Roger Ebert said the film's
violent climax is particularly unconvincing.
But the movie captures the
feeling of teenage frustration and paranoia and the rhythms of teenage life. How the kids talk and feel and yearn about the maddening sensation of occupying a body with adolescent values but adult emotions.
Ebert concluded the film
does an uncanny job of portraying these kids in a recognizable, convincing way.
Both Ebert and Gene Siskel were mixed on an episode of the movie review series Sneak Previews.
What, so Gene didn't like it?
No.
Of course, because Gene's the enemy of art.
He is.
Yeah, Ebert's totally right about that.
Yeah, no, he did a very good job of summarizing the movie.
I don't think the violent climax is particularly unconvincing. I think they earned it.
Yeah, I can see how it gets to the point of it becomes a little theatrical, but at the point, I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, the movie earns it.
And it needed it. Because it needed the explosion. It had to have, the movie is a powder keg.
Yeah.
You know, the parents, the kids, the cops, everybody is on edge.
Yeah. On the edge.
On the edge until they get over the edge.
Wow.
But it had to have some sort of big climactic confrontation.
Yeah.
And I think this was a smart way of doing it. It wasn't, I think maybe because films have become so over the top and ridiculous since then.
Yeah.
Especially teen movies.
Right.
You know, that this seems a lot more realistic in hindsight, I suppose.
Yeah. So 2 years later, in 1981, it aired on HBO and became very popular.
That's where I saw it.
No, it was so popular, it was selected for a special 2-week engagement at Joseph Papp's Public Theater in New York in December of 1981. The response was so positive that the film was booked for regular engagements in several New York theaters through the following February. This led to it being listed on critical top 10 lists and gained more favorable reviews. It has since become a cult classic. According to sources, Kurt Cobain said that
Over the Edge pretty much defined my whole personality. It was really cool. Total anarchy.
Yeah, the music video for Smells Like Teen Spirit was borrowed very heavily from the destruction scene in this movie.
Oh, yeah, look, I remember seeing this and being blown away because I was 11, so I was exactly the age of a lot of these kids.
Right.
Living in the suburbs, living a life of latchkey, two parents that are working, going out and, so it really connected with me as a kid. And with so many kids, I think, and it didn't make me want to go out and destroy anything. It just made me want my stepdad to understand who I was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a nice catharsis for the angst of being a preteen.
Yeah.
Or going through that whole period, man. Like we talked about, from like 11 to 14 or 15.
Yeah.
Is the hardest time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Being in high school, that's super tough too. But I really think that at least for me, the switch from being a kid playing with my Star Wars guys to having a girlfriend or whatever and being ashamed of my Star Wars guys.
Right.
That was such a quick turnaround.
Yeah.
I think adults tend to forget all of the angst and pain and, the sociopathy of what it is to be going through puberty and being a teenager. And, it's like, why didn't these kids just blah, blah, blah? And well, their brains aren't there, man.
Yeah, they can't. They literally can't.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't. It's suddenly putting away your childish things and suddenly becoming an adult, but you're not an adult.
No.
You're in this weird gray area where it's like they want you to act like an adult, but you don't really know how.
I remember I had my 6th grade girlfriend, Pam, and my best buddy, I forget his name, but we were on a school trip to SeaWorld. Mm-hmm. And I was going to buy Pam a ring, because it was getting serious.
Yeah.
No, it was just my girlfriend ring. Because we started, kissing like they do on Happy Days, as she said. I want to kiss like they do on Happy Days. God. I don't know. I guess that meant tongues. But when I pulled my money or something out of my pocket, a little gun, one of my little Star Wars guns popped out, and I was like, "That's what." It was like being caught with drugs or porn or something. I was like, "That's not mine." And then my friend puts his hand on my shoulder, and he looks at me and he looks her in the eye and he's like, "That is his. What do you think about that?" Like, not as being a dick, but like, you have to tell her who you really are, kind of.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I don't give a shit. Let's just go make out. Give me the ring." And so it was that thing where you're so afraid of being found out. You're so afraid of being different.
Afraid of being looked at as being a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think these kids were overcompensating with drink and drugs and vandalism and stuff because they weren't getting the guidance from their parents about what it is to be an adult.
No. No, I mean, the dad, you see Carl's dad twice sit down after work and start drinking, and he's mad, and he's like,
Yeah.
you know, like when Carl comes home and he's sitting there drinking and he's yelling about something to his wife, and it's like the look on the kid's face. I felt that so many times when it's like you walk in and you just feel that energy of like,
my God,
this adult, being an adult sucks.
Well,
Yeah.
Look, man, you know, being the child of an alcoholic, it was not cool. And, you know, for me, movies like this were very cathartic because I had so much anger in me and so much pent up, unrealized craziness just because of the things that I'd gone through that I didn't know how to process. Child psychology wasn't a thing.
No.
Walk it off. Quit crying. I'll give you something to cry about.
Let's go play in the yard.
Yeah. Why are you so mad? Give you something to be mad about. It's like, okay, easy. I don't need any more to be mad about or to cry about, by the way.
We're going to sit down and watch Deliverance 14 times.
Oh, good, yeah. But movies like this or The Outsiders or anything about the kids, the damaged kids, right?
Yeah.
That's where I identified. And that's where these movies were so important because not so much for the kids, which it was, but it was something that parents really needed to see.
Yes.
You know, just like we talked about with kids, you know, the 90s movie. It's like parents need to see that because it's frightening.
Yeah.
But you got to face yourself. You got to look in the mirror and you have to face your own shortcomings.
Right.
And look at your kids as human beings rather than just like little examples of you.
Or trying to see them for something that they're not.
Or trying to make them something that they're not.
Yes.
Because one of the big things about the 70s and 80s, mostly the 80s, was perception was much more important than reality.
Yeah.
What are the neighbors going to think? You can't wear that. The neighbors will think.
Yeah.
You know, you can't act that way because, whoa, you know, don't you air our dirty laundry.
Oh, no.
Everything was, you know, you had this secret life at home that was killing you. And if you talk about it, you're busted. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was like we were trapped. And so it was these kind of movies that would bleed the valve, right?
Yeah.
That would give us an outlet and give us a little more understanding of who we are and what we were doing. And it's just, I wish that more parents would have watched this film.
Yeah.
Maybe gotten a sense of like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Your kids aren't bad kids.
You got to do what Carl's dad said and listen to the kids.
Yeah.
I think the biggest mistake that parents make is that they have an image of what this kid should be.
Yeah.
And rather than letting them be a human being and find out who they are on their own with some guidance, they just try to shove them into a box.
Yep.
And then the kids start doing drugs. They start vandalizing. Because they're lashing out because that's not who they are.
And also boredom.
Yeah.
Kids get bored easily. Kids need to be stimulated. And if there's not something for them to do or a place for them to go, you know, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all that stuff was a way to occupy time and teach kids valuable lessons and things. And discipline. Like, kids need discipline. Not spankings or whatever, but they need rules.
They need rules. They need to know what's too much and what's too far.
Kids like routine, you know? It's like a child needs the safety of a routine, you know, the safety of their parents not being crazy. I grew up in a very unpredictable, explosive household where you didn't know day to day what the F was going to happen.
Right.
And I'll tell you, man, that is not a good way to grow up.
No, it's hard.
It took me a lot of years to overcome a lot of the damage that was done, the anger, the violence, all the things that I was taught and acted upon. And as much as I feel like I've gotten through a lot of that, it's still there.
Yeah.
There's still crap from when I was a little kid that is, you know, in the back of my mind telling me to make bad decisions, you know? Movies that treat kids as human beings, as real people, and capture what it's like to be a kid at that time, those are rare.
Yeah. And this movie is so brilliant. It is written so well. It is directed so well. It is acted so well. I'm a little sad that it took me so long to see this movie.
Yeah.
Because it is so good.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. And the 70s, like 75 to about 81, was probably the golden age of teen movies in terms of teens being portrayed warts and all.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can, I'm sure that it's available on probably DVD and Blu-ray and whatever. But if you want to watch this movie right now, go to the Internet Archive, look up Over the Edge. You can download a pretty solid version of it.
Yeah, it was good.
Good quality version of it. And watch it today. You can watch it right now.
Yeah. And you should.
And you should, yes.
Especially if you have kids, you know? I mean,
yeah, because all these themes they talk about, yes, it was, you know, almost 50 years ago this movie came out, but like all of those themes are still relevant to today.
Puberty's puberty, baby.
Yeah, kids are kids, man.
Kids grow up way faster these days. Kids are way
there's
smarter and
definitely a lot more complicated things going on.
Oh, yeah.
Having just watched Adolescence, it's like, man, can't even have kids inside anymore because they do bad things then.
But that's the thing too. Yeah. You know, kids today are craving guidance, man, and that's why they're turning to the internet and assholes like Andrew Tate.
Yeah, they're getting guidance from the wrong people.
Exactly.
I really wish we could go back to Granada City or whatever, New Granada, and have that where you're just outside for 14 hours a day and you know, kind of learning what it's like to be a person on your own.
Yes, like you said, the worst thing that could happen is you get grounded and have to stay inside.
Yeah, yeah.
And like you said, kids today are like, bring it.
Yeah.
That's where all my toys are.
That's not punishment. That's not punishment at all.
No, I've got a TV and a game system and a computer and my phone and, you know.
It's like, go force the kid outside.
That's the punishment.
You're not allowed back in forever.
Well, this is the kickoff of our The Kids Aren't All Right.
Yeah, the Kids in Trouble month.
Or the Kids in Trouble month. Pick whichever one you like better. I think it's the Kids in Trouble. But all of the movies this month are I think kind of realistic portrayals of youth of different eras. You know, we did the 70s. Now we're gonna do the 80s with
the early 80s.
80s with Bad Boys.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we're gonna hit kind of the mid 80s.
Yeah.
With
River's Edge.
River's Edge. Two really brilliant movies and two very difficult movies.
Yeah, I've never seen either of all the movies this month. I'm very excited to see both of them. We've talked about Bad Boys so much.
It's so long since I've seen it.
And I'm very excited to see it.
I just remember Clancy Brown is the bad kid in the reform school.
I want to see him when he's young. It's going to be weird.
He was a badass. And oh, man, he gets a comeuppance.
Yeah, well, join us next week. We're going to cover Bad Boys. It's going to be fun. It'll be interesting to see how that one comes. But definitely find Over the Edge. It's on the Internet Archive. Find it. It is so worth a see. It is so good.
Hey, if you got teenage or college-age kids, watch with the kids.
Yeah.
I think they'd get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
Only got one law. A kid who tells on another kid is dead. You know, again, this movie does one of the he's Cole Hauser's dad.
Is he?
Yeah, no, I'm not joking around. He is Cole Hauser's dad. Yeah.
Is he?
Is he not?
I don't know. You just say that all the time, and 99% of the time you're full of shit.
Well, I don't think I am this time. Yeah, listen to our Ghost of Mississippi episode.
No.
No?
Wrong. You're thinking of Mississippi Burning.
Oh, okay. Very similar, though.
Yes.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, already in progress.